Welcome, everyone, to a Delco Nerd Network Rewind review, where we sit down and talk about some of our favorite film franchises of the past. On this season, we're doing a triple threat, if you will, of Superman. Starting off with Superman the movie, going on along to Superman Returns, and finishing off with Man of Steel. Of course, starting today with Superman the movie, the classic from 1978. Joining me, as always, is Mr. Anthony the Gooch Ragucci.
Look, in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. Oh, no, it's Christ Trio on Krypton?
Krypton. Yes, we must go to Krypton. We are here to take our trip to Krypton, Gooch, as Marlon Brando would say.
Oh, man, Marlon.
Marlon. We're going to have a special segment on Marlon Brando, which I'm excited for.
The Marlon Brando effect.
Genuinely. All right, so yeah, Superman the movie, initially released on December 15th of 1978, with a production budget of $55 million.
Is this the first comic book movie?
Like live, big. I would say so. I think, yeah. Actually, I can't think of anything.
What would have been before it?
You're right. As far as like a big blockbuster studio superhero film, I can't think of anything. And I think you're correct.
Did Warner Brothers produce this?
You know, I actually don't know. I'm trying to remember who like pops
they
up at the beginning.
They definitely did 89.
Because of course, yeah.
But
so they would have probably held the rights at this point, but I actually don't know what studio. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I would be interested because it's just not that Warner Brothers wasn't around, but you know, I feel like it might be before all those rights got laid down to rest, and it's like DC is with Warner Brothers, and,
right.
Like Marvel was with Paramount for a little bit. But
so yeah, it's Columbia Pictures, which doesn't. So Columbia and Warner Brothers distributors. So
okay.
And I don't think Columbia exists anymore. I think it's just Warner Brothers. Because Columbia is the one with the lady standing, right?
Yes.
Either way, though, yeah. So they still had the rights at this point. No worries. With a production budget, as I said, of $55 million, which that's pretty big money at the time. A worldwide box office of $300 million. 300.4 or so million dollars, which is pretty good.
That's fucking good.
Yeah, especially for the time.
79 movies are lucky to get get that release now.
And I think adjusted for inflation, that's around like 600 million or something like that now. Yeah. So something insane like that. Directed, of course, by none other than Richard Donner. Written by Mario Puzo. Do you know who he is, Gooch?
You know what, dude? I was watching the movie and I'm like, I have a funny feeling Trio's going to be like, who this Mario Puzo?
Mario Puzo. Yeah, he apparently wrote the Godfather novels.
The novels,
the original ones, yeah. And so, I think he did write the first pass of this, but from what I was seeing online, other people really kind of went in and worked it, but he ended up getting the major credits. And I think that was supposed to contribute to being like, this is a real movie, Gooch. Like, this isn't just some bullshit, whatever. Right. Like, these are real people. Marlon Brando's here. Brando's saying Krypton.
Right.
Yes, but of course written by
Terrence Stamp.
Mario Puzo. Come on.
As Zod for 5 seconds.
And we'll get into that. That's actually another interesting thing.
Which is funny that we're also doing Oblivion as the day of
That's so funny. I didn't even think about that.
Stamp is
yeah.
Matt Gargamel.
That's so funny. So I'll hit you with a little description here, Gooch. An alien orphan is sent from his dying planet to Earth, where he grows up to become his adoptive home's first and greatest hero.
Yeah, sure.
That's pretty good. I think
pretty
that's
good.
It's not like Tomb Raider. It's like the comic book hero Superman arrives on planet Earth to fight crime or whatever. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty great. But let's get into it, man. Let's get into the review section. I'm actually really excited to talk about this. I'm just going to dive right in here because I'm actually a little excited to talk.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this movie way more than I expected.
Okay.
I think, for a movie that came out in 1979, there's definitely going to be some things and elements that don't hold up. But I think overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought, Christopher Reeves as Superman is genuinely fantastic. Him and Margaret Kidder, I believe is her name.
Yeah.
That chemistry is just unbeatable. There is a wild change between his Clark Kent and his Superman. He plays it up a lot as Clark Kent.
Peter Parker, Spider-Man.
And he's pushing his glasses up all the time, and he's oh geez, gee willikers, Lois, I think we got to do this. Oh, I fainted. I did love that scene where he catches the bullet.
Golly G or whatever he says that nobody says that anymore.
Exactly. Even for the time he's feeling dated. And I think that works incredibly well. I think this movie is almost like a series of vignettes in the Superman movie. In the Superman world, it starts out with his origin. You see his coming up with his parents on the farm a little bit, and then you move into his big city life. But, Gooch, overall, I really did have a great time with this. I am really curious, though, to hear what you think.
Yeah. don't think I had as a good time as you, I'll be honest.
Sure.
I don't think it's a bad movie, but man, is it strange. The conflict of the movie doesn't really start until the last 45 minutes. We're, up until then, we're getting a very elongated origin story that would never pass today. If anything like that ever happened in a comic book movie, that's all we'd be talking about. So I'm kind of surprised of like how much Krypton they do, then how much before Superman they do. And then again, we're like an hour and a half and we're seeing Superman for the first time, but we only have like 45 minutes left of the movie. And they don't introduce a conflict or a villain or an antagonist like until we see obviously once we see Lex Luthor we know what's coming,
right?
But what is Lex Luthor doing? Who is he? He's like, he has a Lex Luthor corporation, but like he's living like in this like abandoned subway metro like under Metropolis. Like what's going on here? There's really not much background on him.
He's really just a mustache twirling villain. He's really not emblematic of Lex Luthor from
Besides
the comics
being
in many ways.
bald.
Yes, and that's really by the end. And I mean, of course, we see him with the wigs and stuff throughout.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I thought that whole setup was very odd and interesting. I mean, I thought, Gene Hackman is fun and enjoying himself in the role. And yes, please rest in peace.
Please
rest in peace, Gene. Geez, he died. That was recently.
Yeah,
oh my God,
a few months ago.
But I think his, characters, kind of odd and interesting and quirky on purpose, and it's very much of the time. But it's not really Lex Luthor.
It's like Adam West.
For sure.
It's supposed to be funny, jovial, kind of
over the top.
No. Fun?
Sure. Yeah.
It's very small scope.
Yeah.
Even though like he does end up trying to like sink California into the sea, like it feels so small.
You know what's so funny? Isn't Superman Returns like about him wanting to create real estate too or something like that? Like he like creates an island or something?
So I've never seen this movie front to back. I've definitely seen parts. I've never seen this movie front to back.
Same.
Superman's Returns, which we're gonna do next, I have seen, but I don't remember a goddamn thing.
Okay.
I know Kevin Spacey is Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
But I don't remember what's going on. But I kind of like, now that I've seen this, I was like, is it kind of the same?
Yeah, that is. I don't know.
So
actually,
we're gonna see.
So it is supposed to be this. It's like is supposed to be the same universe and is not.
Oh, well, that's gonna be interesting.
Well, I'm excited to get to that, but I will get back to you really quick on that the moment with showing so much Krypton, because like what it actually reminded me of. I was like,
Man of Steel.
Yeah, this is Zack Snyder just doing. I was like, he's doing a lot of this actually.
Let me back up.
Yeah.
It needs to be prefaced how iconic this movie is.
True.
Everything Superman we have seen probably in the last since this movie came out is predicated on the basis of Christopher Reeve's Superman.
Yeah, no, it's true. The
comics, movies, everything.
Crystalline Krypton, the House of El Sigil, like all this stuff has really kind of propelled forward. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, even if I think it's goofy and its pacing is weird and it's kind of odd, it is hard to talk around the iconicism of this film and the impact it had on people.
And Superman as a whole.
To bring up the Oblivion thing, because we talked about Terrence Stamp, it's clear that Todd Howard liked him as Zod in Superman 2.
That's a good point.
And that's why he casted him and got him as Man Clark Hammer in Oblivion.
That's a good point. I wouldn't have even thought about that.
Which is funny, because that is how they do that. They show Terrence Stamp for 5 seconds. They go into the Phantom Zone. Then to bring him back in a sequel, that is like...
That's very ahead of its time, almost.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking the same thing.
I was like, wait, Zod's in this?
Yeah.
And I was like, I know he's in like 2 or 3, but like I was surprised to see him.
Yeah, and so that's a slight fun fact, but it's really nothing big. That was apparently originally just supposed to be in the second one, and they weren't going to show it in the first, but they decided to add it to the first one to like.
So they had a sequel already in mind.
So these were filmed at the same time. Superman 1 and 2. But there was a lot of production woes, which I will get into.
So was it originally a 7-hour movie?
Well, no. So originally they were just shooting Superman 1 and 2 at the same time.
Interesting.
And
that's really rare.
I mean, dude, especially for the time. Like I think that's the first.
I think a few movies we've...
Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what was recently done with that? Wicked.
Right. You're right.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
No,
I didn't hear anything about it. And then I see the the poster for the next one, I was
Yeah.
like, oh shit, they filmed that back to back.
Right. It's rare and it's expensive, so people don't do it a lot. And there's a lot of reasons that even come up with this production, that explain that and show pretty good reasons as to why. But yeah, this was a trouble production for sure. Zod, though, just seeing him for that moment is good. I do think that's a great scene in and of itself. Yeah,
we get him thrown in the Phantom Zone. It's like it sets it up and things works pretty well. Not that we need to go through the movie beat by beat, but I want to start in that first scene. We've never had a comic book that kind of intros the comic book movie as a comic book.
It was interesting.
1938, and some kid is reading a Superman comic, and we just kind of enter the page.
And it transitions.
Yeah, like even though and it the movie kind of sets it up as like, hey, this is a comic book, and now we're entering the comic book world. And then we get into the Krypton stuff.
Of it all.
Yeah, the Krypton is very crystalline, like you said, and I was kind of like, I was really watching exactly how it looked, because when we get to Man of Steel, we're going to be talking about that
absolutely
a lot, because I think Zack Snyder worked some fucking moves with how Krypton looks in that movie. It's really iconic, but in this, it kind of seems like they're on like the moon underground, like it. It has a style sense, but it's also very simple at the same time.
It is,
and I think the Superman the animated series takes from this a little bit,
definitely,
with their clothes and their robes and just how it's like, I don't know, like a few colors.
Well,
what do you think about the camera effect there too, with the white and then like the certain colors popping?
Everything's very like, I'm trying to think of the word, like
that
glowing.
Episode of SpongeBob where they go to the future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's definitely, and that's for sure took inspiration from that. Like we said, it's iconic. It's everywhere. This is, when I think of Krypton, I will say I don't think Zack Snyder's Krypton is nearly as iconic as this. Like when people think of Krypton, this is the Krypton they think of. I think, anyways. I would venture to guess, and I think it's just because it's such a striking visual thing.
It might be an amalgam of things, but of course, at its core, the base.
Well, and I just think Snyder's. I like that scene of Krypton, and I still remember people complaining about Man of Steel having that long opening when it came out. And
so good.
But that's what's funny to hear. Like I feel like this is almost beat for beat in a lot of ways, like
same.
very much drawing from that in ways that I wouldn't have even realized.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like the House of L stuff and like the strife above.
Like they don't introduce Lex Luthor in that first one, but we see the LexCorp
logos
and the Wayne Enterprises, like very small.
Well, and that
Easter
also
eggs.
comes from him focusing, of course, on Zod right away, which I think narratively makes sense within Man of Steel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Lex is a bit, not throwaway, but he's just here and gone for a moment.
What is he doing?
It's really mostly, I think, about experiencing like Superman's like coming of age almost. And I did think that moment where he transitions from young Clark Kent to old Clark Kent was a bit odd.
He's at the Fortress Solid for 12 years.
Well, but that's what.
How does he not call it Krypton?
That's the other thing. Yeah, he's listening to Marlon just say Krypton 1,000 times.
That part was interesting because like 12 years.
And I don't think that's implying that he's literally just been staying there for 12 years. I think the idea is he's been like learning, and then also, I don't know, exploring the world, because he gets a job as a reporter pretty easily, so he must have been building some type of, I don't know, maybe it's the 1970s and you can just walk into a place and be like, hey, son, I want a job, and they're like, you know what, I like your spunk, you got a job.
I think you say this when you say it to me, but I'll say it to you. You're thinking on it too
No,
hard.
for sure. And listen, there's a bunch of those moments, like he jumps out of a window and he just has his Superman clothes on at moments and stuff like that,
where
they
just
just like
change into it, and it's like,
there's another one where he goes, those moments I like too, by the way.
The phone booth thing where it's like not a phone booth.
He's like, shit.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. I think it was just supposed to poke a reference at
absolutely about him using a phone booth to change,
right in the comics, and it's just like we don't have phone booths anymore.
Right. Well,
how datedly modern.
Well, and it's funny because like I didn't realize this. I guess at the time they had moved like Superman on as a character within the comics, like he was a reporter, like on-screen reporter for like Galaxy News Radio or something within the comics. So I think even at the time when this came out, it was a little bit dated in how it presents Superman.
I'm curious, like what the big arc of Superman was.
No,
at the time.
Yeah, I'd be curious too. And honestly, I'd be curious to see like what depictions of Krypton were like and stuff like that before this, because again, it has it has taken over the Superman mythos so much to the point of like again, when I think of Krypton and when I think of his origins, I think of that crystalline spaceship. I did love the spaceship he goes in is literally just like a big disco ball.
Oh, he aged in it too.
Yeah, he did. He's in there for they say he's in there for 3 years.
Which is kind of strange.
Yeah.
You know, also nude baby.
Yeah.
We see not only the butt, but the wiener.
We do.
I was like, interesting.
It's a baby, so.
You wouldn't see that today, though.
It's a
maybe a butt. Maybe a butt.
I don't know why that nudity is okay at the same. Yeah.
Yeah, not a. Yeah, it's kind of like the Nirvana kid.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I did like the scene where.
Like, hey, there's my dick.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I did like Martha and John Kent. You know, we don't see them for too long, but I do love that moment when he's talking to his dad. He's like, Dad, I could fucking throw the football and I could do all this. And he's like, son, you're not here to throw a football. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're destined for way greater things.
Yeah, very quick scenes with them, but I felt very impacted by them. And
I did too.
They are the stereotypical, like, they look like they're from, like, the 30s.
Right.
Mapa Kent,
absolutely.
You know?
And I mean, this is supposed to be, I mean, geez, they look like they're like 40 or 50, so they probably would have been born in the 20s at that point.
Yeah,
so
it looks like he's in high school in the 50s.
Yeah.
And he comes, and Lex Luthor says Krypton is destroyed in 48.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes him 3 years to get there.
So, yeah. So, he's probably in high school on the tail end of the 50s, like 59, 58.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then by the time he's like an adult, I guess it's supposed to be modern times.
70s?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I just cannot praise their chemistry enough. Like Kristen or Margaret Kidder and Christopher Reeves, those moments together are awesome. The way she's truly like swooning over him. The interview I think is fantastic. I do think it's interesting how his power set works in the way of like he has like a gravitational field almost of some kind. Like he's holding her by like her hand and they're like flying up. And then even when he grabs
I think that's a byproduct of the tech they used to film.
I think it is too.
I thought about it. I'm like, that makes no sense.
Of course.
But I'm like, it's clear that like the technology was
how
limited.
else are you going to do it?
Right,
yeah. And by the way, the tagline of this movie is "You'll believe a man can fly," and I gotta say, for 1979, for most of the time, not all of them, I think I did believe a man can fly.
The effects
most of the
weren't terrible.
I don't think so, dude. Even the moment where he catches the plane, I know it's kind of slow and old, but like I think it looks pretty good for especially the time that they're doing it in.
You didn't bring your box set.
Oh, I didn't. Fuck. I'll bring it on the next one.
Is Returns in it?
Yes,
they all are.
Yes, they all are. Which was $40.
Yeah, you got to bring it.
Absolutely, I'll bring it next time. It's sadly not in the shape of Superman's head, but it does have an S on the front, and it like opens up. It's cool.
I'd be interested. We gotta. This is the first time you've ever bought the movie. I know.
Right. No, I have like on like one or two before, but I've been trying to be better about every time doing it now.
I think we talked about that at the end of Assassin's Creed. But by the way, this is our quickest turnaround from one to the other.
That's true, but also this will
and
be coming
we don't
out.
have a guest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think we talked about this as like behind the scenes. Like we were like, we should not have a guest for this because it does kind of slow us down.
Yeah, it's just adding another person into the schedule. Two people scheduling is already hard enough sometimes.
Yeah.
But the box set's cool.
I wanted to talk about Superman. Oh, relating to James Gunn Superman.
Yeah.
The lines, especially from the latest trailer we just got. I'm really seeing the Christopher Reeve
100%
of it.
Absolutely.
Like just of like hey, like I'm trying to think of what he says like with the like him like goofing around with the criminal on the side of the building and he's like standing there and he's kind of like quipping at him. And there are some lines, like from Superman in the latest trailer, for where he's kind of doing the same thing.
Well, he just has a bit more personality.
That's not Man of Steel Superman.
No, it's not. And I think that's a major. That's
at least in Man of Steel.
No, for sure. And even
that.
most of Batman vs Superman. And for better or for worse, I think that is just a lot of people's gripes with those movies. And I don't blame Henry Cavill for that. That's just the direction he was given, and that's the way they wanted to take the character. A lot more contemplative.
And I think in his later appearances, he does do that. Like the Black Adam end credit scene where he goes like, a whole lot of justice. Or
right,
like that. Whatever that line is.
Again, it would have been nice to be able to have, and that's one of my biggest gripes with Superman. I would have loved to see a more Superman from him. And again, I don't blame him for that. But I do want to see this guy who's just like, and we talked about it before, who just likes to fucking save people. He wants to do the good thing because he's a good person. And no matter what, he's going to do the good thing or the right thing. So I'm excited to see those elements be brought forth, especially with Corn Sweat.
I like the way Reeve looks in this movie. Like, not the suit. I think the suit actually looks fine.
I think it looks awesome. For what it is for the
reason,
time.
I'm like, I'm okay with this.
No, yeah.
His height is very good.
6'4".
He's not super jacked or buff, but like it's fine.
I would say for the time, I feel like he kind of is though. Like that's huge for the time, and I
I'm
think
sure. But like for some reason, it's just like
he's definitely on the skinny side, especially when you look at a Cavill. The fact that he was just
bigger, and I can tell that he's larger in stature. Like I didn't need to be like super jacked.
I have a fun fact about
to compare him to Brandon Routh.
Yeah.
Once we get there, because like I don't remember if he looks jacked at all in that movie.
Yeah, I just remember his suit's super like muted, and it doesn't have any texture on it for Routh. I don't remember him being like small or anything. I have a fun fact. We'll get to it at the end about his training regimen and who was involved in that.
Okay.
But yeah, dude, overall, I do think this movie was really fantastic. Like I said, you're going to run into some issues with this being a 40-year-old movie at this point. When it comes to effects or whatever. Probably 50, 79. So
60, Trio.
Jesus Christ, 60 years old.
Think about it.
No, you're right. You're correct. You're right.
We're not into early 2000s anymore.
No, that's
where
true.
Everything was 40 years ago, 20 years ago.
Oh, that's insane. Well, no, so it would have been 8. So let's round it to 80. 80 to 2000, that's 20. 2000 to 2020.
No, this came out in 78.
78, yeah, so an extra 2 years. So
80, 88, 98, 2008, 2018.
And now, so we're closing in on 40, yeah.
Okay, yeah, 40.
Either way, it's old, but I think a lot of the performances hold it up majorly, especially when it comes to the main cast.
I like a lot of people in the Daily Planet, like the guy who plays Perry White. I think is very good.
Yeah.
We don't really get enough of Jimmy to really have too much to say about it, in my opinion. Margot Kidder, the only problem I have with her is she does kind of feel like a ditzy female character.
Really? I think she's actually relatively strong-willed, especially for the time. Like, I agree by today's standards, yeah.
Yeah, if you notice, she's not really doing a lot of reporting on screen.
Sure.
And not that they're really even talking about it.
And there's like a little bit about it when she's going to interview like the guys for the land stuff, and she's out there. And then I think,
like the interview with Superman is kind of interesting. Like, they're talking about his dick size at one point, it's very like she's so infatuated with him at this point that like the actual journalist angle of it is totally gone, which we definitely get in Man of Steel, and we're definitely getting in James Gunn's Superman.
Sure. Yeah.
Who even plays Lois Lane in Brandon Routh's?
I can't.
She's
remember.
in it.
Yeah. I don't remember.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we will get there.
But yeah,
I can picture her face, but I can't. I don't know.
I think that dress is kind of iconic look for her. But like she's not wearing like that iconic like purple look that would become associated with Lois Lane that I know is I think it's in Man of Steel a little bit. I don't know. Like again, like expecting more from it. I'm not necessarily saying I expected more from Lois Lane.
No,
it's just kind of
totally
like pointing out what it is.
Absolutely, and I think that's a product of the time for sure. Excuse me, Jesus, I'm sorry, I can't have these fucking Pepsis on the thing anymore. I think that's a very fair critique, actually.
Fun fact for Supergirl.
Oh.
I think Erica Durante, who plays Supergirl's mom in that show, wore that dress for like she was talking to Supergirl, but like she's wearing the Margot Kidder.
I see
look.
that blue one. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's it. Something like that. Erica Durante also played Lois in Smallville.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of connective threads. That's a bonus fun fact for you.
Even beyond mine,
that someone like me brings to the table.
No, I love it. That's what you're here for. Gooch.
If you know any fun facts, why don't you?
Leave them in the
comments.
Yeah. Or correct me if I'm ever wrong on a fun fact. I would love it.
That was one thing when we were talking about the tree. I'm like, I'm sure there's a plethora of information about this movie around, but
and
especially
when
about the four. Yeah.
Well, and when it comes to like the production, especially, there was just a lot of shit going on. Anything else on the movie itself, though, review-wise?
Yeah, we didn't really talk about Lex Luthor all that much.
Well, I thought we kind of did, yeah.
Otis being the bumbling buffoon, and Eve Tessmacher
who ends up helping. Yeah.
What is Eve Tessmacher supposed to be in this?
It's like his like assistant / lover, I guess. Again, you don't really know how like. That's the thing about this Lex Luthor. He's just a weird, right?
Yeah,
he's just kind of this weird guy who thinks he's smarter than everyone, and like surrounds himself with idiots to, I guess, could like make himself feel better.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like Otis is just like the henchman,
right?
And the bumbling henchman idiot when they like the plan with the nuke.
I didn't think we needed that twice. We can do it once.
Yeah,
what
like they mess it up, so they got to do it again. I'm like, what is this?
What about
again, Lex Luthor is like labeling himself as like the greatest criminal ever, but he's like the mustache squirrel.
Yeah, it's like a joke.
We're gonna stop the train.
Yeah,
and we're gonna
I'm gonna
the
blow
nuke.
up the East Coast, so I have the new East Coast. Like, okay, Lex, got it.
Yeah.
Also, so we do have to talk about. I forgot the saving Lois. So
comes
back.
That's where I was gonna get to in the end with that part of the movie. Was really dragged. I was like, all right, like I'm kind of checked out.
I kind of agree.
Once the California starts like getting destroyed, I'm like, holy shit.
Some great model work, but yeah, I agree.
I'm so bored at this point. And there was a part in the beginning where I felt like I was also bored. I think it was before like when they get mugged. I really like that scene, by the way. And I think Wonder Woman kind of...
It does. It pays homage when she stops the bullet. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to get to your point in a sec, but I think that's kind of it. There is a lot going on in this movie.
Yeah, and we're never ever going to cover everything.
No, I know, but like there's a lot of like it's not that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of characters that are I don't know.
But again, I do think there are like separate
what I'm trying
stories.
to say,
It starts off on Krypton. We get that story of him, and then he arrives on Earth, and we get the story of him at home with Ma and Pa Kent, where he's learning like to be a good person. Then we get
Pa Kent has a heart attack.
Pa Kent has a heart attack. He realizes he can't save everyone, no matter how many crazy powers he has, which is a great lesson to learn. He goes to the Fortress of Solitude. Then all of a sudden. Yeah.
I like that scene. I don't care.
I get what that. I think I like what that scene was trying to do. I just think it could have done it in a better way.
For audio listeners, I was doing the Man of Steel.
Pa Kent.
Doing the hand with like the tornado. Yeah.
Don't do it. Just stop. And then it goes to the Daily Planet. We get that, and then all of a sudden Lex is introduced, and we get the actual
Superman.
conflict.
It's like the first time we've seen him, and he's saving crime all over the place.
I like those scenes a lot when he helped the girl get the thing out of the tree and stuff.
Yeah, and then there's like the he brings the boat to the front of the police station, and
apparently, I guess Mark Millar really likes this movie. He has like that cat stuffed in his house, the cat that he saves from the tree. And I guess
like the actual
cat that he saves from that white cat that he saves from the tree. Up. And then I get apparently
also that girl gets hit.
Yeah. She's like, mommy, a flying man saved my cat from the tree. And she's like, I told you not to lie. And then she slaps him.
Jesus.
And then everyone's finding out about him. But so I guess there's a comic called Superior, I want to say, and it's apparently a lot of homages to this and takes a lot of inspiration from like Christopher Reeve's Superman. I want to read it. It's apparently pretty good, but.
Saving Lois.
We
got to talk about that scene because
it was just dragging on forever of her suffocating. But then Superman gets there, and he does have one of the greatest reactions in cinema history. Where he's just like, I thought the audio cut for a second. I was like, what's going on? He's like, no! And then his face as he goes off is truly wild.
So I rewound that part like 5 or 6 times, and then I snapped it to Trio saying like when you cancel the podcast on me, and he's just like nah. And he like the way he like turns around, like the camera shot is so strange because he like
and then he flies into the camera. And then he just reverses time.
It's like not really good. Like I was laughing. Like it was funny. It was genuinely hilarious. And then he's up in space.
And then he's just flying around.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. Oh, here's Marlon Brando.
Oh my God! Don't
Cloud Dad.
Don't interfere with history, Clark, or something like that. He says.
It's so funny because the message from Jor-El is so different compared to Man of Steel. Yeah. Where Jor-El
with all the knowledge
really recognizes like you're going to be a god among these people.
Yeah.
And like, become like the symbol like they need.
Yeah.
And like, the something to strive for.
Yeah,
God.
And again, that is
so
where,
good.
And that is where, I do see that inspiration even draw from that. Like, this is more specific even in the way of he's like, you are the sole survivor of our species, and we need you to carry on our legacy in more of a knowledge way, whereas when you get to Man of Steel, it's more literally genetically.
Don't like rule over them. Don't be this like superior being to them.
No,
and it doesn't really seem like he is doing that, but like he does the Flash thing where he reverses time because he fucked up. I wouldn't even say he fucked up.
No, he just wasn't fast enough.
Can't save everyone.
Mm-hmm. Which apparently he can though now. So that's the other thing. It's a weird kind of mechanic, and apparently Richard Donner only wanted to use it at the end of. He didn't want to originally use it at the end of this first movie. He wanted to use it at the end of the second movie. And I believe in the Donner cut, he does reverse time again, just because that was his original idea.
So there's a Donner cut of what?
Of the second movie.
Okay.
Because Richard Donner, he was fired halfway through the production of Superman 2.
Is that available?
Yes. Yeah, that's relatively recently. It came out in 2004, I want to say.
I was thinking about we're not covering 2, 3, and 4 Quest for Peace, but
Right.
I was thinking, I'm like, maybe I should watch them.
I kind of want to, too.
own.
I have the Donner cut comes on the one that I have, too.
I wonder, so I watched this stuff on HBO Max. All this stuff I think is on HBO Max that we're going to be watching. I'm curious if the Donner cut is streamable, and if it's not, Trio, I'm coming over.
Sounds good. No, yeah, we'll make it happen. There was one other point I wanted to make. Oh yeah, and the only like kind of setup we really have for that is when he's flying through space at the beginning, and he's like, "Don't mess with human history, Clark.
Don't fuck it up, Clark.
Yeah, don't do it, Carl.
It's
Carl."
me, Marlon Brando.
And I'm exploding with krypton. Jesus
Fuck
Christ.
the Krypton.
Fuck the
Kryptonians.
Kryptonians. Oh my God. I'm sure, like, you were like, why did anyone let him say this? I'm like, no one let him.
Everyone was like,
No one let him say anything.
You gotta tell Marlon Brando he's saying Krypton wrong.
And someone did, and he's like, Krypton.
And the
He probably said it
PA's
right to
like,
their face.
I don't want to.
Yeah, he's like, he's going to yell at me, so I'm not going to do that.
Marlon Brando is so funny.
This was the time for Marlon Brando where he just didn't give a shit, apparently. Like, he was taking checks and just, you know.
This was post Godfather.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's checked out.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess the ending, Lex is de-wigged.
And
we
put
see
in
he's
jail,
bald
yeah.
and put in jail. And then Superman has a really good line. It's like, hey, we're a team.
He's like, I do love it. That is very much emblematic of the time.
We're
He's
a
like,
team, Warden.
He's like, it's all right, Warden. We're on the same team. Definitely now today, that's going to be a little different connotation now. But
I know we've talked about this before, and I'm trying to think when we talked about this on the podcast. The Truth and Justice. The
American Way. Yeah.
How they changed it. What is it? It's Truth,
Justice, and a Better Tomorrow or something.
I still think that Truth, Justice, and the American Way is like
Central.
It's important. It doesn't.
Superman
goes against the government
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't matter what the current
American.
administration is doing. Right. He's American.
But also,
and him being American is important. If you read Red Son, you'll see the exact opposite of how his Soviet upbringing changes who Superman is.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think, people, when you say truth, justice, and American way, they're like, well, America, like, look what America does around the world. And listen, I'll be the first to agree with that. We do a lot of shitty stuff, and we're not very, very emblematic. But
it's the
at the same time,
stereotypical American ideology.
But it's like he's striving towards the ideal. The ideal is that we would be saving people because it's the right thing to do. Do we do that all the time as America?
Right.
No, especially right now. There's a lot of major issues going on. But it's the ideal that he's striving for, not the reality. And I think that is quintessentially part of the character. He was made by 2 American immigrants. It was an American story. So I don't think that undercuts him being able to serve the entirety of the world. And I do think this movie, the Gunn's movie, is going to tackle that in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of people are going to come away with a lot of different reads with the way that they feel about it. So I don't know. I do think that motto is still central to his character, but I can, I guess, see it to a degree why you might not. That's my thought on that, though. Anything else?
Good thoughts. No. I just I heard the line, and then I kind of remembered that whole thing.
Yeah.
Because I remember Jim Lee came out and was like, we're changing it. It's like, okay, but you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
You're wrong.
I agree. And by the way, if you disagree with us out there,
let us know in the comments.
Let us know in the comments, and we still love you. I don't care. It's all right. Anything else on the review portion?
No. I guess just to wrap it up, again, didn't really love it, but have to recognize its iconicity.
I think
that's where I'm at.
I enjoyed it. I didn't necessarily. Maybe I did love it.
In my Letterboxd review, I didn't like it because I honestly I don't think I'd watch this movie again. I didn't grow up with it. I have no affinity for this in the nostalgia area.
Right.
So I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
So this perspective is probably pretty interesting for most people because it's like, oh, I didn't grow up with Christopher Reeve as Superman.
Definitely.
So it doesn't really mean a whole lot to me.
Especially in that very sentimental way.
Henry Cavill was my first Superman.
Of course, yeah.
Even though it was when I was finishing high school. I didn't watch the Superman the animated series. I didn't watch the other animated shows. There was no Superman for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that this really is just a worthy watch for anyone who appreciates comic books in general or is a fan of comic book movies and this
And
genre.
that's why we're doing it.
And that's why
it
we're
is
watching
important. It is important.
So I think from that respect, I think you'll get a lot out of it and enjoy it, and just to see where all these iconic, all this iconic imagery comes from, just especially is worth the watch. And I was not bored for most of it. I think probably for like 40 minutes
some
of
moments
it,
it's like,
there's some dragging
okay.
moments for sure. But overall, I did have a great time with it, and I can see why it holds up the way it does.
Well, Tria, let's have a little fun with the fun facts.
Let's get a little fun here. Yeah, Gooch. All right, so Christopher Reeve, I should say.
Yeah, it's hard.
I know, I want to say the
speaking
S.
it to it in the plural.
Right, so
it becomes Christopher Reeves.
Reeves, yeah.
His shorts,
Exactly. He underwent extensive training to achieve the Superman physique by none other than David Prowse. Do you know who that is, Gooch?
Sounds familiar.
He is the man behind the mask for Darth Vader. He is the body on the original Star Wars.
That's why it sounds
familiar.
familiar.
Yeah. He was the guy who played Darth Vader in the original trilogy. Of course, didn't voice him, James Earl Jones, but he was a bodybuilder. So he trained him.
Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. Didn't know that.
So this was a really long and grueling production, taking almost 19 months total to complete. This was due to Donner shooting both Superman 1 and 2 at the same time, while also having some major creative differences with the producers. Over 6 months of this filming time was spent on the flying scenes alone. In total, about 25% of the entire 19-month shoot was devoted to developing, testing, and executing the flying effects. That was the most important part of
We were
this
talking
film.
about the flying effects, and it is probably a good, I'll say, 5 to 10 minutes of flying. I have a funny feeling that the ADR for Lois talking about how in love she is with Superman was an afterthought. Maybe they originally had those lines in the movie because they're talking to each other,
right?
But we don't hear it, so maybe they scrapped
the
lines for that, and they were like, "Let's do something else," because it's kind of boring.
It is
it is a long sequence.
I actually did like that,
and
that
the Twin
though.
Towers are in it.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
they are.
which
the
so-
Metropolis Twin Towers.
Yeah, so is Metropolis New York, really?
Probably in this, yeah.
Yeah.
But technically in the comic books, Metropolis and New York both exist, if I'm not mistaken. Like,
yes.
all the real cities exist as well as the fake ones. So yeah.
But yeah,
that's
just
a
a
lot.
thought. Just thinking about what you just said there.
Right.
It's like, yeah, if there was a lot of trouble development, maybe they were just like, all right, let's just bring Margot Kidder in and like do some ADR and this will work.
And I'm sure there was a lot on it in general.
I think it did. I don't think hearing what they were saying was like it felt like important.
Well, I will say, I think the poem, I feel like that poem moment and just her like talking in her head and like, can you read my mind? I actually really like that. And that did feel that felt very poignant and not necessarily like they put that in to replace something. I feel like that was kind of the initial thing all along, but it could have been. I don't know.
I think how it turned out.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I'm actually glad you brought that up because I did forget about that scene.
Yeah.
So filming took place in Pinewood Studios in the UK, where they of course shot Star Wars, as well as Canada, New York, New Mexico, and even some locations in Italy. So they were.
Did you notice how Smallville High School was just this big building in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah.
I mean, like Smallville is supposed to be like that, but like the school looked like nothing else.
Nothing's around it. Yeah.
It was just this like big green building,
just out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. That is funny.
Oh, we forgot to talk. That running scene is so weird.
It is.
That was like, what is going on?
Well, you can tell they're speeding up him and the footage because like everything around him is also moving fast. They did what they can. Again, for the time,
I was like, this is strange.
Yeah, it's odd.
Also, like he's like revealing himself to the world.
And then his dad's like,
Casually.
come on. So yeah, that's when he gives him the like speech about throwing a football. So yeah, this all eventually led to Donner being replaced by Richard Lester on Superman 2. Lester reshot more than 50% of the scenes for Superman 2 so he could get director credit.
Snyder is the modern day Donner.
To a degree, sure.
Like legitimately.
No, I mean, yeah, especially this is just another. I think there's so many of these examples of just terrible studio interference and producers and execs wanting to come in and
it was
change
WB again.
Yeah. So it's really crazy.
Crazy.
So let's get into some Marlon Brando hate here. I'm actually excited.
Welcome to the Marlon Brando effect. My name is Anthony Ragucci. This is my co-host Chris Rio. Let's do it.
We're here to just hate on Marlon Brando. No, I'm kidding. Apparently, great actor and he did some nice things. Apparently, by all means, but not a great guy from what I could understand. Especially even how he treated women.
He was kind of a drunk, right?
Yeah, and like he just apparently he has some choice words about like female companionship and just like what you should talk about. So either way, you can look it up yourself. So Marlon Brando was top billed for this film. Meaning, of course,
the credits at the beginning.
He is on.
Holy shit!
Oh yeah, that's very much. I forgot to say that. Yeah, it was like 5 minutes.
But it's on like, oh my god!
I was like, oh, we're still going here. Okay,
this is like 5 minutes in.
So yeah, he was top billed despite his 10 minutes of screen time total. He was paid $3.7 million plus a percentage of the film's profits, making it one of the most lucrative per-minute acting roles in film history at the time. Gooch, that rounds out to about $1.5 million per minute on screen.
I wonder, okay, I would say, not Kevin Costner, fuck.
Kevin, what?
What the hell's Jor-El's name in
Oh, it is Kevin Costner.
No, not Pa Kent. In Gladiator, who
Oh
my God.
Jor-El. Why am I forgetting too? Russell Crowe.
Yeah,
Yes,
Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe is in a lot of Man of Steel. Obviously, he's in a lot at the beginning, but like he comes back a lot through voiceover and like weird.
I mean, he's an AI hologram. He's in it.
Right,
yeah,
right,
he's
right.
an AI hologram.
He's in it, but like he's a big actor.
Yeah.
And like they, both dads of Superman are like top billing.
Yeah.
I'm curious how much both of them got paid. Because again,
Comparatively
like
back then,
Henry
yeah.
Cavill's a no-name at this point.
It's probably a very similar idea,
So
for sure.
yeah, I'm just kind of thinking,
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So
You know what I'm getting at. Obviously, it's not the same.
No, of course, but
in terms of
that's
money,
that's interesting though, because it is still very. And even right now, if you think about it, I mean, I don't think Ma and Pa Kent. They're
James
well-known
Gunn.
actors for James Gunn, but not comparatively to like a Kevin Costner.
The only thing I know he was Otis in The Walking Dead.
Right, and I think that guy does have like an Emmy or something too for something else. But I do like that they're going back to a more unknown name, especially for Superman. And even, again, they did it for Man of Steel, so I think that's the way to go. So, in a Letterman interview with Christopher Reeve, he openly criticized Brando. He felt like the legendary actor
awesome,
did
dude.
not live up to his name. When asked if it was an honor to work with him, Reeves simply said, quote, "No, not really." Sorry, it was not really no.
That's
but still,
awesome, man.
Apparently, he just like he showed up on set. He was just like he just took the money. He just wanted to be there. He has a whole quote that I think is really good. He's like he could have been like a leader and he could have been on set like really setting a good example, but you could tell he just showed up every day, just read his lines, didn't give a fuck, and left. So. Yeah, Christopher Reeves, not a fan of Marlon Brando.
That's funny because I think not a lot of actors will speak out against each other.
Well, especially
while
at
they're
that
still in the loop,
And
like
Brando was big.
I think
we
like
can't
I
really imagine.
I know like Rebecca Ferguson had a lot to say about somebody she worked with. I
Right,
think you
that
can
she
kind
didn't say,
but
like,
like
the name.
she never says his name.
Right,
And
right.
it's like a lot of actors don't do that. Because it kind of looks bad on them for saying it, but also
Right.
it's like you're kind of going down with the ship if you like say that to an actor. But
And I know with Reeves, unfortunately, like I feel like he didn't like move on from this role as much as he would have liked. I felt like he kept trying to break out of it.
Roles, but like I mean, he would have his accident and then pass away in his 50s.
Well,
like,
and he
long.
really became like a main staple of this franchise, like on a producer level, and being able to make creative controls even by like Superman 4, I believe.
Which was probably the worst.
That's I think by all accounts.
I've
the
heard
main
a
one.
lot of
and I
bad
know
things
Jor-El
about
is
that movie.
is in Superman 2 a lot more. Like you talk to his hologram a lot more and things like that, because you deal with a lot of that. So
Marlon Brando's in it again.
He
That's
is.
so funny.
So here's another Brando fact to finish off the Brando section.
The Brando effect.
The Brando effect, yes. So Brando refused to memorize most of his lines in advance, apparently telling Donner that this was the only way to keep his performance fresh and not over-rehearsed was to read him the first time on screen. So that scene where he puts infant Kal-El in the escape pod, he's actually reading the lines off the diaper of the baby. Like a note is on the diaper. You can see it in his eye line. He's not looking at the baby. He's like looking like down and away. Just a piece of shit.
That's wild.
They're paying you $3.6 million.
Michael Rooker was on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And they were actually talking about this. I don't want to call it a technique, but it's basically like you're being fed your lines through an earpiece while you're acting.
Yeah.
And apparently it's like they were talking about it. And he's like, yeah, I have no problem doing that. Instead of like memorizing lines, it's just like I'm just gonna get them fed through an earpiece.
Well, and I know there was something with the Skarsgård, the older gentleman who plays the Baron on Andor season 2. He had a stroke, I guess, somewhat recently.
Stellan?
Yeah, and he said it was making him have trouble remembering lines. So I think he actually did that for Andor, where they had him feeding the lines like live into. I think he would like read it before, but he just wasn't troubling like remembering.
I'm surprised.
I think it was a light one, and I think it was very like private when it happened, like because there wasn't really.
He's got to be up there.
Oh yeah, I think he's probably 70s. I would say 60s.
I feel
70s.
like he's been old ever since I've known about
since
him.
Thor. Like I feel like he was even older than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mentioned that Zod's scene was originally supposed to be in Superman 2, of course. So Reeves, on the other hand, compared to Marlon, how much do you think he was paid?
Christopher Reeve?
Yeah. I know it's a tough one. Just a ballpark. So Brando
I'll say
got,
in between 1 and 10 million.
Oh, Gooch. Oh, Gooch. He got paid $250,000
Oh
for
my
both Superman
God.
1 and 2, which, by the way, is probably still a lot of money at the time. But
That's
comparatively,
nothing.
it's nothing. It's
I mean, he's the
really
lead.
wild. Yeah.
He's not
it's-
top billing, but he's the lead.
But he's the lead, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we mentioned before, a lot of elements from this film were adapted into the comics, including the crystalline Krypton, as well as the S symbol being the House of L. And, a few other things.
I meant to ask, there's a ton of other Kryptonian
Yeah, you see the
sigils.
symbols and
What,
sigils.
are they just random?
I think they're just randoms and made up for the movie. I think some of them are reused.
Because like Zod's house gets one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like off the top of my head, maybe I know you see some in Supergirl, like the show. But
again, I do think this was the origination of like, oh, those are house sigils. Like these are houses on Krypton, which is interesting.
so the S did really mean Superman.
it did. It meant the House of L. But yeah, and I
No,
think
no. Before.
Oh yeah, sure, exactly. You're right. Yeah, when he
'Cause
gets exactly, it's just
Right.
it's just and I do love that explanation in Man of Steel, where he's like, it's like a winding river or whatever. It's the House of S or the House of L. It's good.
Yeah.
I think that does it for us though, Gooch.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about Man of Steel post DCEU
Same.
and Snyder cut and all that. It's going to be interesting coming back to it since all that.
Right.
But Superman Returns, just from the perspective of like I don't even remember what that movie's about. It seems like I was talking to my mom's boyfriend about it. And I'm like, oh, like we're gonna be watching this, and he was like, I'm surprised you don't remember. Or I'm surprised that you don't. Am I saying that right? I'm surprised he didn't remember. No.
He's surprised.
I'm not surprised he didn't remember it.
Oh, I
because
gotcha.
I don't feel like people talk about Superman.
not do
Returns.
very well,
It seems to be
yeah.
very much forgotten in terms of Superman film.
Right.
You know, like nobody talks about Brandon Routh as Superman. Like, it's just like I feel like the nerds know it, but not everything else.
No, you're right, and it did not do well at the time. I know, people have a very sour taste in their mouth about Kevin Spacey in a lot of ways too,
Oh,
so
yeah,
that doesn't
yeah.
help it, rightfully so. So yeah, I'm actually very excited to talk about that in the way of just like being able to watch it again, just like think about like what's even happening. Because again, I just remember like Lex Luthor, he puts some kryptonite in like another krypton crystal that like expands.
We
and
didn't talk
creates a
about
thing.
the kryptonite.
Oh
and
yeah,
and him deducing all that. I'm like, what? You're deducing that from a newspaper article?
right. He's like, well, if it blew up at this, they're trying to like show his intelligence. I feel,
And it's not very intelligent.
Right.
It just feels kind of silly.
it just a bit feels contrived. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we are actually streaming this on twitch.tv/Delco Network, but we usually don't stream our re-3s or our rewind reviews, which is what this is. But if you're joining us from twitch.tv/Delco Network, we really appreciate it. You can find this podcast, wherever podcasts are found. Just search Delco Nerd Network. And you can find the video version of this podcast on youtube.com/Delco Nerd Network. On social media, we're at everywhere with an @ at Delco Nerds, facebook.com/Delco Nerd Network. Again, you know where to find us. That's our @
Absolutely.
You can join our Discord, which is in the description of every single podcast, where we talk about Superman, what games we're playing, and even what's going on in our real lives. And you can find all this information at our website, delconernetwork.com, as well as our email address, delconerds@gmail.com. Feel free to email us anything your heart desires. My name is Anthony Ragucci for Chris Trio. Thanks for watching. Stay nerdy, and we'll see you next time.